former front office executive for the Eagles and Browns, and one of our favorites to ask questions to about what's going on in the business of the NFL, Joe Banner, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. I give you the floor on the DeAndre Hopkins and for David Johnson trade. What'd you think of when the Texans and the Cardinals pulled that one off, Joe?
I think I've said this about the last 4 moves they've made. I just don't really get it. I mean, they're now in a situation where they don't have cap room and they don't have draft picks. And so what happens is you lose one of the top players, one of the top difference makers in the entire game, and you don't even make sure you get the proper compensation back. So, I've been questioning this for a while. This is a reflection of kind of the moves they've made in the last few years. They've made some short-term decisions that have allowed them to stay competitive in the division, but not really in the league. And I think this is, predictable. And they lost, in my mind, one of the top couple of players that have played at a position that can potentially make a huge difference.
So, does this happen if the coach and general manager are not one and the same, do you think?
I hear this, and I'm a big believer that there isn't a structure that defines success in the NFL. It's who do you empower, and are they good at what you give them to do? So I don't think Bill O'Brien has demonstrated the ability to be good at making personnel decisions, managing the building of the team, managing the cap, and all the other intricacies that go with it. But I can point to teams that have general managers that, are respected or recruited heavily to get the jobs, and frankly, they've made a lot of mistakes. So I differentiate. In this case, I don't think there's any chance the model is working or will work. But I don't think that's a function of the structure as much as it is, Bill has demonstrated the ability to at least be a solid coach and not the ability to be better at more than that. And some guys, I worked with Andy Reid, as you know, for 14 years, he could do both, and it wasn't even a challenge.
So the question I have is...
I don't think Bill is the right person to give that kind of range of responsibility to.
Interesting. Maybe there's something else. There's got to be something else at play here. Why a 2 and take on David Johnson's contract? There has to be something that certainly when Stephon Diggs is, who's a terrific younger receiver in his own right, but isn't on the career Canton path so far like DeAndre Hopkins is 8 years in, and DeAndre Hopkins is 27, right? And
right.
So how does this? It just doesn't compute when Diggs gets a team of 4 picks, including a first rounder. How does that happen? Walk me through that, Joe.
So the only explanation, and of course we're guessing, they're not going to tell us, but it's reasonable guessing. When you have a cap problem and you have Tunsil and a quarterback about to break the bank at both positions, Tunsil, because he's very good young, and you traded for him without getting an extension, shame on you. Watson, because he's very good, and that's what quarterbacks make it, and he's eligible for an extension. Then you find yourself in a position where you have to move a guy like this. Now, that doesn't explain why they didn't get anything for him of the value that we think we should. That's just inexplicable. But why they had to move him, if he's sitting there saying, listen, I'm not coming back into camp unless you give me a new deal, and you don't have cap room, and you've got these 2 guys that you have to sign, then you have to make a move to get rid of a guy like this. Now, they took on a decent salary in Johnson, but they can get out of that fairly quickly if they need to. Mm-hmm. If they redid a deal with Hopkins, they have to increase the money. They have to give him a new signing bonus. They have new prorations, and they can't get out of the deal so easily. So I think the origination of this was that they couldn't afford to give him a new contract, and he was adamant about getting it. Whatever other tensions there are there's always that kind of stuff. You get a player of this caliber, you put up with the tension. So my theory is it all emanates from this lack of draft picks and the lack of cap room. Draft picks can cure cap problems, but if you don't have either, you got a big problem.
Oh, man. And then you got 2 guys that have the hammer, too, right? And Tunsil and Watson.
If I were advising Tunsil, I'd say, why are you reporting without a new deal? All of the top players now, and we've seen it already. We just saw what happened with DeForest Buckner. We saw what happened with Khalil Mack. We saw what happened with Donald. We see what happened with, Zeke Elliott. These top players are getting deals after 3 or 4 years. You're talking about a top player playing one of the most important positions on the team that you just saw them give up 2 1s and a 2 plus other stuff to get. I'm just sitting there saying, I'll come when you give me a new contract, and it will be a record-breaking contract because he has all the leverage now. And that's what the top players are doing. Some of them are doing it quietly and trying to get deals done with their team. Some of them we've seen be much more aggressive and public about it, but that's what they do. And, same with Watson. I mean, if I'm representing a top-tier quarterback right now, I'm not going past the third year of that contract before I'm getting him a new one. And he's been hurt, so it's even more important for him.
Joe Banner, longtime NFL executive, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. This is maybe your fourth, fifth appearance on the show. Love having you on. It seems it's a tradition when you and I talk to talk about the Cowboys paying top dollar at the top of the market. And here we are with Amari Cooper, fresh off a 5-year, $100 million deal. I don't know how much of that is real or what. I give you the floor on paying Dak $33 million per at very least for just this year. This deal with Cooper and Zeke in year 2 of a very expensive deal. That's what you're paying your triplets. Are the Cowboys set up for success in your estimation, Joe?
No, listen, they're going to benefit from the CBA being done and a jump in the cap. But I had a meeting with Common Policy when Jeff and I took over the team that was something that affected how we ran the Eagles for a long time. Common had a really great way of explaining cap dollars. He referred to them as poker chips. And he said, when I sit down at a poker table, I'm probably going to win about as many hands as the guy next to me. So the only thing that differentiated us, did I bet more on the right hands or the wrong hands? So you want to stretch your poker chips to make as many bets as you possibly can. And if you're waiting to the last minute and handing the player all of the leverage and you're paying players that are worth, 15, 17 and players that are worth 17 or 18, 20 and quarterbacks that are worth 30 to 32, 33 to 35, you just develop $10 million of fewer poker chips to place bets and try to make sure that you don't win any more often than the guy next to you, but you're actually making more money because you place the bets in the right hands. And I've thought about the cap and all the years I managed it from that perspective from the minute he said it, and that's where the Cowboys are bad. They could be getting more for their money. That's all I mean by that, and they could do it by signing the exact same players earlier.
What do you think is going to happen with Dak? Play on the tag? Come up with a long-term agreement? What do you think is going to happen on that?
This is the mystery. I think I said it in your show a year ago for the first time. Is he lining up to be the next Kirk Cousins? I don't think he was a year ago. I think there was an opportunity to do a deal. We don't know that. We won't know that till we see how he behaves. But, the 2 tags right now would produce probably a higher average than anybody would give him. There's a small risk, but it's really small. And then he's a young, accomplished quarterback, free for any team in the league to bid on. And, Kirk Cousins wasn't the best quarterback to come along, but he, if you factor in length and structure and guarantees, may have gotten close to the best quarterback contract anybody's seen.
Well, it looks like if he plays everything out with his extension, he'll have 7 straight years of guaranteed money like a baseball player.
Yes.
Right?
And we'll sign a new contract that will be 3 or 4 years long, which will be fully guaranteed. So he could have an entire career of, at least at the time he signed it, fully guaranteed contracts, and we haven't seen that. So, that could be a strategy, or he could just be waiting around. I would be really shocked if $33 million-ish wasn't a good enough average to get it done. I heard a year ago that the problems were around structure as opposed to average, and maybe that's still persisting because, you can say $105 million in guarantees, but when the guarantees kick in, how much is guaranteed on signing makes a huge difference. And he has the leverage to make sure those numbers are what he wants them to be now.
Joe Banner here on the Rich Eisen Show, longtime front office executive for the Eagles and Browns and more. So read the tea leaves about what's happening in Carolina and Cam for me when you're seeing what you're seeing with Carolina bringing in a new coach and giving him a ton of years and bringing in the young coordinator of the moment in Joe Brady and the owner giving them a whole bunch of license to do what they wish. And Cam saying on Instagram today, hey, I never asked for the trade that I've been supposedly given permission to seek. You manipulated the narrative and act like I wanted this. You forced me into this is what he tweeted out or he Instagrammed out. Read that was a response to the Panthers Instagramming out, we've given Cam Newton permission to seek a trade. What are the tea leaves here?
Well, they're really fairly straightforward at this point, and I'm not surprised. I mean, I've been a big proponent, some publicly and a lot privately, when people have asked me about head coaches for the last couple of years, that Matt Rule was the top available guy out there. He went 1-11 in the first year at Baylor, and a team called me and asked me, who would you hire? And I said, Matt Rule, and they told me I was out of my mind. And Matt and Bridgewater is what I would predict you'd see. A very smart guy, talking about Bridgewater, who's very accurate, but with some other limitations. So he may turn out to be the guy or not, but that's what fits Matt. He's going to focus on execution. He's going to surround people with a talent. He's going to build two lines that can dominate a football game. He's going to be sound strategically. And you can love Cam, but recognize that isn't the description of Cam, but it is the description of Bridgewater. So this doesn't surprise me at all. It seemed like there was kind of peace there, and I kept cautioning people, wait a little longer before you declare, what the outcome is there. I like Bridgewater. We have to see if he can stay healthy. We have to see if he can take his game up to a little bit higher level. But I think you're going to see this is the type of player he's going to build the team with, a really committed guy, a really competitive, hardworking guy, and prioritize that over, maybe the guy that's the biggest stud or maybe harder to manage, at least until he's established a culture that he's comfortable with.
So what if Cam says, screw it, I'm not seeking a trade? What happens? Because they'll have to cut him, right? I mean, they'll have to
right.
just let him go, and then he'll be a free agent to do whatever the heck he wants. The problem is many teams might have their jobs filled by then. What are Cam's options here, and where do you think might be the best fit for him, Joe?
So if I'm Cam's agent, I'm going back in and say, listen, we don't want to seek a trade. Can you release us so that there's still at least some empty seats on the bus here? And that's the only way he can get any control over the situation. Of course, what will really happen is the agent will make calls with or without permission, probably has already felt out the market, anticipating at least this was a possibility, and has an idea, what's available and, what's not available. So who knows? It only takes one team, and obviously he's had tremendous success. He's also had kind of a period here where he's had trouble staying healthy, and the last position you want to be sweating out whether a guy can stay healthy or not is your quarterback. But listen, Carolina's going to do that with Bridgewater. So when the situation's right, somebody does that. But if I were the agent, I would say, instead of seeking a trade, can you just release us? And that will be a tough call for the Panthers. On one hand, they think they have a valuable asset and they want to get something for it. On the other hand, they don't want to have all this discord early in a new coach's tenure and looking side eyes from some of the players on the team as to what are you doing here, and may want to just kind of clean it up and move on to the next thing.
I know, and he has been, as advertised, entertaining and iconic. I know when he said that at his first combine, people were like, boy, he's full of it. But, I mean, he's done his duty for the Carolina Panthers. Perhaps they should do that. And maybe perhaps where Brady does not go might be the option for Cam, right? Los Angeles, the Chargers would, to say, hey, we got Cam Newton here, would be somewhat significant and serving what no doubt would fill their need to let the Los Angeles market know that they've got a big-name player. Tampa, I don't know. I mean, you want to talk about no risk it, no biscuit. That's Cam Newton, right? So maybe that would be a fit, Joe?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Winston fan, but I think if you had a choice between Winston and Newton, you may be challenged between somebody with a little more upside. To me, that's Newton. And somebody who's Winston, who you're familiar with and has been able to stay healthy, and at least you've got a year in the system. But that would be a difficult choice if you actually, ended up in that situation. It's not going to be a great market for Cam. It's just not that many seats available. Some teams kind of expecting they're going to draft somebody in the top 10 or 15 picks who's not really in the quarterback market, which sounds odd. And health has been an issue here the last couple of years. And as I say, the one position you really hope to have peace of mind, if possible. You'll trade it off for talent. But if possible, is a quarterback position where it's an exception that he gets hurt as opposed to something that's almost predictable.
In the minute I have left, what do you think Belichick's plan B is now that Brady's moving on? What do you think Bill's plan B is?
The rumors are Dalton. And the reason that Chicago couldn't get him out there was because he wanted to see what happened in New England. I have no idea if those rumors are right. They make sense to me because the one thing I'm sure of is he will focus on somebody that can execute his offense, who he perceives to be kind of smart in a instinctive, intuitive sense. Somebody that will, bring absolutely no, baggage with them whatsoever. Strong on a learning curve, strong leader in the locker room. That does kind of sound like Dalton to me. Not that he's the long-term answer necessarily, but he at least fits what they've historically drafted and obviously what they had in Brady. Just a smart, sound guy. I build more than anybody thinks their schemes and their systems and their surroundings can win. He just doesn't want somebody to drag it backwards.
Joe, love the time. Love our chats always. We'll be calling you again really soon because things are moving very, very fast. And stay home, stay safe, stay healthy. You take care.
You too. Great being on.
Right back at you. Joe Banner, at Joe Banner 13. Follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow.